Welcome to the Ask Coach Mac podcast, where coaches from around the world get their strength and conditioning questions answered.
Guys, Ron McKeefery here, and welcome to episode number 3 of Ask Coach Mac. Thank you so much for joining me today. We have a great question from Richard, but before we get there, I want to thank today's sponsor, Iron Grip. Just got back from the conference a couple weeks ago and got an opportunity to hang out with those guys, Chris DeSanto and the rest of the Iron Grip gang, and hopefully got a chance to go by the booth and just see what they got going on. Can't say enough about the plates, dumbbells, and barbells that they've had. They've been in facilities that I've put in ever since I started my career, and it was just great hanging out with those guys. Chris is a former strength coach, with the Raiders and Browns, and a wealth of knowledge and information. And for nothing else, just hanging out and talking shop. But it's great to have one of our own there to kind of be able to talk to when you're designing facilities or putting together rooms, and how Iron Grip could potentially help you with that. And so even though this is a worldwide podcast, I do love the fact that they're manufactured in the U.S. and opportunity to support the U.S. economy that way by going with them as well. And so if you're in the market, I'd encourage you to reach out to Chris and Iron Grip. You can go to their website, www.irongrip.com, or call 800-664-4766. And, just talk with them and see what they got going on and see how they may be able to help you out with your projects. But can't say enough about Iron Grip and supporting the show and helping to bring it for each of you for free. And so I really appreciate their support there. All right, let's get to today's question from Richard.
Hi, Coach. My name is Major Richard Fritz, and I'm due to retire from a career in the military in approximately 20 months. My question is, what is the best way for someone like me to break into collegiate strength and conditioning as a second career?
Richard, thanks for your question, and thank you for your service to our country. I have an affinity and an appreciation for our men and women in service in our military, and I really appreciate the sacrifice that you've made and everybody that has made to protect our country. So thank you for that. I appreciate your question as well. This is a question that I get very often from coaches that either have gone like yourself, that have been in a career, that have been successful, and maybe this is something that they're wanting to get into, or maybe they went down a different direction and got away from a passion or a love of working with athletes or strength and conditioning or whatever. And so I get the opportunity to have this discussion quite a bit. I think it really comes down to a couple things. First, you need to close your eyes, and you have to start with the end in mind. When you start with the end in mind, you really have to sit back and think about what your ideal situation would be. And when you're coming from another career, you've gotten used to a type of schedule. You've made money. You've had successes, and strength and conditioning is very much a both feet in career. If you don't have both feet in, it's hard to make it. And the reality is that it doesn't make sense to a lot of people working 60 plus hours and for not a lot of pay, and the volatility of the profession and the lack of job security. For a lot of people, it's just too much. It consumes them, and because of that, they often get out of the profession. And so, working backwards and knowing what's the ideal day and what's the ideal job situation and ideal clientele and those types of things helps you make very calculated steps, and makes it easier to say no to things that maybe take you off track. Because that's the other part. When you get into it, let's say early on I wanted to be an NFL strength coach. Well, I got presented an opportunity when I was working with the Kansas City Royals in an internship position that I took mostly so I could just have working with professional athletes on my resume. I got an opportunity to take the AAA job, and that was very appealing. That it's a full-time job in the field that I chose. It's working with an organization that I appreciated and wanted to see do well. And it was very hard to say no if I didn't have my eyes set clear as day on the NFL. I ended up turning that job down to go take an unpaid internship with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, so that I could continue down the path of ending up working in the NFL as a full-time strength and conditioning coach. And so, again, when you start with that, I think that's the critical thing. A lot of people that get into strength and conditioning, they kind of go uh, a couple different ways. They don't either mind who they work with; they just want to work with athletes, and they're focused on human body and human performance and those types of things, or they're working. They're identified more with a particular sport, and they're trying to stay connected to that sport, utilizing a skill set that they bring to the table. And really, that was me. I mean, I wanted to stick around football. Football had such an impact in my life that I had to stay around it. And I had an affinity and appreciation for the human body and human performance, and so that rather than coaching quarterbacks, I found my passion coaching strength and working with the guys on a daily basis. And so that's why I chose that route. For you, got to do that. So that may not be college training conditioning. That may be working in a performance facility. That may be working in, maybe for you and in your background, working in tactical strength and conditioning and working with firefighters and SWAT and military. That may be something that you're able to blend the two. But when you start with the end in mind, that helps define those calculated steps, because you don't want to go too far down the wrong path and waste time, especially when this is a second career. And so, close your eyes, think about what's the ultimate situation for you, and try to map out the best steps to accomplish that. And the second thing is, regardless of where that is, you have to network. This is very much a tight knit community, much like the military, and networking is critical pieces. And so, a couple things while you're still in the military or in your current career, look for opportunities to do what I call mini internships. Maybe that's, you got 2 weeks vacation, you take a week of that and you go volunteer with a strength and conditioning staff for a week and show up, be the first guy there and the last guy to leave, and really roll your sleeves up and get integrated into what they have going on. And not everybody will allow for that, but there's a lot of coaches that would, and especially there's a lot of coaches that appreciate the military like I do, that would go out of their way to try to make that a positive experience for you. So, setting up mini internships introduces you to a bunch of different strength coaches. It introduces you to a lot of different ways of doing it, and it increases your network. The second thing that I would do is I would draw a 50-mile radius from where you're based at, where you're currently at, and I would visit every strength and conditioning coach in that 50-mile radius. And I choose 50 miles because it's basically you can get there in an hour and back. And so let's say you have to be off base by 2 o'clock. Well, you could drive an hour and be somewhere by 3 o'clock and still see maybe some of the afternoon groups training in that situation. And watching training and interacting with coaches gives you, it creates a great learning opportunity for you. So I would encourage you to create that 50-mile radius and go and visit as many coaches in that radius as you can. And you never know where your next job's going to come from. For me, it was taking a site visit to K-State, and the strength coach recommended me to a football coach that had worked there previously for one of my first opportunities. So you never know how that's going to come, but that networking piece is big. So, Richard, I hope that answers your question. I'd love to hear what everybody else thinks. Use the hashtag AskCoachMac3 to continue the discussion over on Twitter. Really appreciate you submitting a question. If I want to encourage everyone else that is listening, that if you have a question that you'd like to be potentially featured on the show, head over to AskCoachMac.com, and there you can submit your question by hitting the record button at the bottom of the page and asking your question just right straight from your computer there. Appreciate everybody for listening. Here's a quote to finish off the day. It's from an unknown author, but it's a beautiful thing when a career and a passion come together. And couldn't agree more with that. Sometimes, regardless of where you got your start or where you're currently at in your development, if you have passion and you're willing to work towards that, great things will happen. So take care, guys. I'll see you in the next episode of Ask Coach Mac. Bye for now.